Hi everybody, Teddy Baldessar here, and we're doing something a little different today. We're talking about some watches, which normal programming as usual. We're doing something where we're looking at some cars, and as you can see behind me, we're in a special place. We're going to be speaking with Matt Farah of The Smoking Tire here in Playa Vista. So let's get the day started.
This was literally my only watch. This is 1.2 million. What this watch represents is the total disregard for a watch as an investment property.
Well, Matt, thank you so much for doing this, man. It's a pleasure to meet you. I have many people in my circle that are car enthusiasts, watch enthusiasts, and they're excited that we were going to get together.
There is a big crossover. Usually it goes cars first and then to watches. And not the other way around. I find a lot of people who love watches don't. It's weird when watch people don't understand car people, because I think car people, in a lot of ways, do understand watch people, even if they don't collect them.
Like that whole idea too. Like for you, because you're an authority in the car industry, you're a watch collector as well. We have some of your watches in front of us. What's like the philosophy of you as a collector? And have you found that being a car guy and a watch guy, that there's like a shared philosophy on what you decide to own or you enjoy?
For sure. With cars, I have to have much more restraint, because even though I own a literal car storage business because that I started to feed my ridiculous addiction, at a certain point, they just become, they take up space, they take up resources. I only have so many places I need to drive, especially in the city, you know? So you can really hit a wall with how many cars you can use, and it's practical to own. Whereas with watches, they're small.
This could go here, this can go in that.
Yeah, and at a certain point, you know, a watch is like a car that comes into the bar with you. You know, and it doesn't have to, I'm not talking about showing off your golden president. I'm talking about like for the sort of, if you know kind of people that you would want to appreciate your watch. And so in some ways my taste in watches reflects cars. In other ways it reflects the fact that I am problematically obsessed with being on time. And so it's not so much that I look at the atomic clock and do the hacking seconds. Like, I don't care that much. But like, if I tell you I'm going to be somewhere at 9, it's important that I'm there. And so my timepiece reflects that.
I think I showed up at 9:03 today.
I was mad. By 9:02, I was mad. I was like, this is a watch guy? What is your excuse? And with a spring drive. Yeah, spring drive.
That's a high beat.
It is? Okay, sorry.
But still, it's still pretty damn accurate. It's still pretty accurate.
If you're late, you spring drive. Yeah.
So where do you want to start? So we have some of your watches here, and this is only a sampler of what you have. Right?
If I told you the number, you wouldn't.
Actually, no, I wouldn't bat an eye.
You wouldn't bat an eye.
Yeah.
You wouldn't
I'd be
bat an
fine,
eye.
but
I probably have about 45 watches. Now, they're not all insanely expensive. Only a couple of them are insanely expensive.
Yeah, looking at this, I mean, you collect pretty much the entire spectrum. Like, it doesn't seem like it's not a cost thing for you. And that's my philosophy too. It's really about enjoyment and what catches your eye. And I think you've been able to identify what your eye is.
Every watch I own can be worn with a t-shirt and jeans, because that's pretty much the only outfit I have. So
you dressed up for me today.
I literally did. I did. I was not wearing this when you got here at 9:03. So every watch I own, I can wear to work. You know, and some of them maybe I can't get so wet, but you know, I have to wear them in every day. So they all kind of reflect that. None of them are too precious to wear at an average day at work.
So where'd you like to start? I mean,
we start at the beginning.
Okay, let's do it.
So this is a Rolex Kermit. It's from 2008. My dad got it for me, brand new, at the Geneva airport. I think it was $4,000 or something.
Different time.
He has worn a no-date sub since 1990. It's been serviced once. And that, for a very long time, is what I knew about Rolex. I knew it was nice enough that people kind of knew what it was, but that he could wear it for 30 years and service it once. That may not be good consumer advice, but it's what he did. And so, you know, when I left to move out here, he gave me something that was of that level of quality. This is your watch. You can wear it with anything all the time for the rest of your life. And the fact that it was green, I was like, oh, cool, green. Like, I didn't know what green meant. Didn't matter. It was green, okay? And every once in a while, somebody would say, nice watch. And this was my only watch.
How long did you wear this for? Like, how many years?
2008 until 2015. This was literally my only watch. It is, you can tell because you know what these are supposed to look like. It has a great sort of ghosty fade on the bezel.
It does.
It is not nearly as bright as the green was, and I love that. If you saw the bracelet, oh, is it beat up? I mean, it's great, but like, this is my winter look with the strap.
Case back sign from your
Case back
parents.
sign from my parents, and it's an important watch. And the fact that it was green when I met my friend Spike Ferriston, and he told me why it was green, why that was important. He was wearing a Pepsi GMT, and he goes, this one is red and blue, and here's why that's important. At that time, I had started to become a little bit successful in YouTube, and I got the mindset of, I now want to buy the thing that my dad bought. I want to show that I earned it, and so that was what got me into wanting to have more than one watch.
So you had over a half decade of just wearing one watch. I mean, that's an unusual path for the watch guy, and even the car guy too, right? Like, as you're getting into it, you know what typically happens. You go crazy. You just want to try everything, acquire everything.
Yeah.
So you were able to exercise this patience at the beginning.
It's really odd because at the time I was collecting cars. And so I understood why you might want to have 5 or 6 cars, but I never understood if I had this watch which is a great watch, and you could have that watch as an only watch. What am I going to do with a better watch or a different? I didn't understand that until someone went ding. Here's why your watch is different from my watch. Here's what that means historically, today. Here's these other watches. Here's a world of stuff that reflects a lot of the things that you like about cars, but it's not a car that you have to deal with. It's a low maintenance, easy to store, object that to someone who knows shows that you're doing all right. That doesn't bother me. Or you're flashing, like, I work fucking hard.
Yeah. So it's showing like the progression of you, and also this is a connection, I think, to cars as well. Like, just the idea of modding something.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on modding cars versus watches? Do you see them as like an apples to apples comparison?
Yeah. No, I do. I think in terms of modding is, to me, some of the most direct comparison of cars and watches. Other comparisons can be kind of hokey. Modding is pretty straightforward. You can customize a watch visually. You can customize a watch mechanically. You can customize your strap. You can customize your deployant or a bracelet or whatever. And I do not think that a watch is too good to customize to a point, right? I'm not going to get an FP Journe or an MB&F and think I can do better than Max Busser. I cannot. But if I have a Seiko that is not precious, if I'm starting from scratch or tearing one down, why not? What's the harm? And we'll end on it. I also have a customized Rolex. People on the internet seem to be very offended by customizing
There's purists out there. Probably the same way in cars, I would imagine. Like, they just want to keep it factory clean.
There are, but I don't care. They make a lot of those, and mine is mine. So anyway, this is a custom Seiko. This one was built from scratch. I have a bunch of custom Seikos. I went on a vacation to Tahiti, and everything in Tahiti is this beautiful Tahitian black pearl. But they don't have anything for men. It's all like women's jewelry and like super femme. And so, and I'm not a pearls guy, but when I came home, someone was like, you can get a watch with a Tahitian black pearl dial. And I was like, no way. And so I had them build me a sort of, it's like a Yachtmaster-esque build.
Yeah. With the bezel, at least.
With the bezel and this beautiful Tahitian black pearl dial. And the second hand, which is this little hammerhead shark that swims around the dial. And it's such a great conversation piece. It's such a bit of fun. It's a big visual impact for a relatively small amount of money. And I love custom Seikos because you can get a watch that feels like $1 million in a lot of ways.
Absolutely.
For less than $1,000. And if you're the kind of person that needs to scratch that itch regularly, custom Seikos will do it. You know?
There's a lot of guys that are just handy too, and they just want to start to get more into their hobby in a separate way, and I think modding opens it up to it. I don't personally do it, but I am encouraging it all the time.
It's great. I wore that watch to a Grand Seiko dinner, and a guy sitting across the table from me wearing a brick yellow gold AP chrono that you could see from space looked down at my watch and went, "What is that?" And this thing, that must have been 350 grand on this guy's wrist. And he's looking at my little Seiko going, "Excuse me, can I see that?" Everyone who sees it is kind of like, hang on a minute, that's something. And it's a really cool piece, and modding Seikos helps you develop a taste for what you might like at the higher end.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
You mentioned Grand Seiko.
Yes.
So how I probably first discovered you was a video where you were explaining Grand Seiko to Joe Rogan. And I would say that's one of the most important videos on the internet for watches. I know it might seem extreme, but you were able to present to somebody that was, at the time, didn't seem like he had any interest in watches.
Yeah.
It has like 5 million views.
Yeah.
I remember
Does it
stumbling
have 5 million views?
I just looked at it again. And no, like, this is one of the most important
That's
videos.
funny,
And
yeah.
like, you're talking about Grand Seiko, which at the time, they were just getting off the ground in the United States. So like, to be able to talk about that on that level of platform was different. So why were you fascinated with Grand Seiko? And I think we have a shared interest in this brand.
I absolutely adore Grand Seiko. For a lot of the same reasons I like regular Seiko, the vertical integration, the Japanese philosophy behind watchmaking. I first heard about Grand Seiko from my friend Carl Ruiz, who unfortunately passed away in 2019. He was a famous chef. He was on the Food Network a lot. He was Guy Fieri's number 2. And he really taught me a lot about watches. And we were great friends, and unfortunately he died, but he told me, and I said this on stage at the GS9 Club event, so if anybody watching this video was there, sorry for reusing the joke, but at Rolex, you know, if there's a damaged watch in the line, they just sort of throw it in the bin. At Patek, if there's a damaged watch in the line, they take it apart, you know, to nothing, and they put it back together. At Grand Seiko, if there's a damaged watch in the line, the watchmaker commits seppuku. And that is the, you know, they just don't allow anything less than perfect out the door at a price that is, you know, 30% of whatever Patek is charging. And, you know, he showed me that. I was in Miami, and Carl goes, "You gotta go to the Grand Seiko boutique. Gotta go to Grand Seiko while you're down there." I go there. Well, who's working behind the counter? A young man named Joe Kirk.
That's
when
the guy.
he was just selling, he was the salesman, he was just there.
Yeah.
He's showing me, well, I walk out of there with a watch that, as it turns out, was a very rare Japan-only model that ended up in the Miami store by accident. I'd never seen another one in America. SPGB003. And it was like, oh man, this is a whole other world, you know, of watches. I brought my Lake Sua dial Grand Seiko because at its real heart, you know, the spring drive is amazing. I love spring drive. Their finish work is amazing. I love it. I hate their bracelets. That's why mine doesn't have a bracelet. Some taper, please. Everyone else is doing it. You can too. But dials, right? It's all you've got the white birch, and probably have like 7 other ones. To me, the Lake Sua dial is the most Grand Seiko of Grand Seiko dials.
And I've actually seen Lake Sua with my own eyes. It does have this ripple effect.
Yeah.
So they're not completely embellishing the concept. And this is also, they do a couple Sua dials now. I mean, this was the one, like limited edition. They have the gold tone accents, and then you get the 9RA2, which is, so spring drive is already ridiculously accurate.
Yeah.
But then you have this, which basically makes it twice as accurate. It's like half a second a day. Which Seiko, Grand Seiko, all of it, it's so conservative in these numbers. Like when they say they're half a second a day, they're better than half a second.
I've read about spring drive being, you know, 2 or 3 seconds a day off at the end of a year or something. I've heard crazy stuff about it. But to me, it's just the dial. Shout out to Joe Kirk. Love him.
Joe's the man.
And now, and oh, by the way, P.S., I'm sure your audience knows, that guy who sold me that watch now, like, runs the brand.
He has been on our channel so many times. Okay, Joe is unbelievable as a resource for Grand Seiko. I've learned so much from him, and
he's a boss.
To do so.
Yeah.
Another thing I actually stumbled on you in the earlier days was, it's funny because I'm not that into cars. I'm into cars, but I am not to your level anywhere near it. I'm not going to pretend it, but I'm a curious guy and I'm excited to learn a lot from you. But another way I stumbled on you was a podcast that you had with Cameron Weiss, of Weiss Watch Company.
Yeah.
And you clearly have a watch. You've built a relationship with him.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more.
So the watch actually, it came first. I got the watch on like the second day I met him. It wasn't like a thank you for the podcast.
Okay.
I met Cameron because a friend of mine is like obsessed with made in America stuff. Anything made in America, he's all about it. And so he had shared something on social media about this kid, because at the time he was like, I think he was under 30, in LA, had designed his own movement and is manufacturing it like near where I lived. And I'm like, oh, well, let me figure what's going on with this. And so I went down and I met him, and it was so cool what he was doing. And I really wanted to support. And so I bought one of his American issue field watches for my podcast co-host, Zach. And I bet Cameron wouldn't normally do it, but I said, listen, I'm buying 2 today. We're new friends now. I would like mine to be a paint to sample Bugatti French Racing Blue dial. And he said, he'd see what he can do. He did get it done, and you can see on the case back, it's the number, it just has 1. So that's the only one of those. I love that he made the movement. I love that it's the Los Angeles dial and not his current Nashville dial.
Yeah, because he moved recently, last couple of years.
Yeah, no disrespect to Nashville. He and his family are great, but we're still we're tight with the Weisses.
And there's only 3 or 4 guys in the United States that are doing any level like true like manufacturing or in-house level stuff. And he's the one that's doing it more on the industrialized level, where you can get these watches $2,000, something like that.
I think the price. I think in 2016 this was like $2,400, and now it might be maybe $3,500.
But still,
or something.
what you're getting for that for a guy who's really doing this work in the United States, I mean, kudos to him, because most of the ones that are doing it, they're ultra high end, and there's still not much. I mean, this industry. This was the bedrock of the watch industry in the 1800s, and the Swiss were coming over here to see like brands like Waltham and what we were doing. So
they were like, I read the spy book about them spying on at the World's Fair.
Yes,
I just
they wanted
read
to see our industrial line and how they were able to produce the output. So I mean, people forget that.
I know Cameron well, and that is a hard business, and it's a lot of physical labor and hunched over a bench. So I'm so happy to support them, and who doesn't love a one of one? I mean, you gotta.
That's a sick blue.
I
like that blue.
Yeah.
Ralph Lauren, you don't see. Interesting brand.
Right. You don't see it.
So tell us about it.
You don't see it. So this is a watch. This is one I bust out to really stump the watch nerds. And so my dad was the president and COO of Ralph Lauren from 2000 to 2015. He's been a very successful in the luxury retail business for going on almost 50 years, and during that time was when Ralph decided he wanted to not just be a fashion watchmaker and not do a collab, but be a real manufacturer. And he partnered with Richemont, who were for some reason about this. And they went on to make watches that used movements from Richemont's catalog. You probably can recognize this movement right away. It's the JLC.
The JLC caliber?
JLC caliber World Time. They put it's like RL blah blah blah, but it's a JLC World Time movement. It's sort of that cowboy chic thing that Ralph loves. Didn't sell very well, surprisingly. They're still making watches, obviously. What makes this one interesting is the one they sold to the public was steel. That's not. The ones that he gave to the board of directors of his company were white gold. There's no reference number. None have ever been traded to the public. So that's one of the 6.
Wow.
So it was gifted to my father. My father doesn't really care. He likes his Submariner. He gave it to me. So, do you know who Black Badger is?
No.
You never heard of Black Badger?
No.
He was like a Hodinkee celeb for like 2 years.
Okay.
Shout out to him, James Thompson. He's a materials scientist. Okay, and so he does like crazy stuff with Loom. He's done some collabs with MB&F and really high-end brands. Fun materials. He'll like grind up seashells and turn them into pigment and just weird science stuff that ends up in jewelry and watches. So he's involved in a company called Arcanaut out of Denmark. This is an Arcanaut watch. And what makes it awesome is the dial is made of something called Fordite. Fordite is hardened car paint. So like at the paint booth at the Ford factory, they paint the car and it drips on the floor and it accumulates and layers over time.
So it keeps like you have a layer.
So when it gets to
compresses down and it'll mix all these different colors together.
And when it gets to a depth, they mill out a block of it, and then you can thinly slice material for dials. So depending on the angle you cut it, the dial looks different. If you cut it vertically, it looks like stripes. If you cut it horizontally, it looks like amoebas. If you cut it at a 45 angle, it looks like waves, like this. So when you order one, every one is unique. Because
you don't know what you're going to get. You just
No. I didn't say that. Okay. But every one is unique.
Yeah.
When you order it, they send you a spreadsheet of like 30 dials. And you go, oh, I like that one.
Oh, so you're able to hand select.
You're able to
a lot of
choose.
manufacturers, when they do that, it's the luck of the draw.
Arcanaut's a boutique shop.
Yeah.
So you get to choose your dials,
That's
which
nice.
is great. And so you have a bunch of strap options, and I decided to go with a little bit of each. So normally they won't sell it to you like that, but I'm running one.
Do you know what floor this is coming from? Like what brand this is? Do they specify at all, or is it just?
This is Ford.
This is Ford.
This is actually, and I can tell because this is my world. I can see very specific Ford colors like that teal from the early '90s. Like, not 100% of it is from Ford. They call it all Fordite, even when it can be from other factories. But this is from Ford.
What do you think about automotive themed watches in general?
Usually bad. It's the connection between cars and watches is so obvious. It doesn't need to literally be written on the dial.
So just don't be so on the nose about it. Show the subtlety in how you infuse it.
So that's what I love about this watch is, if you know nothing about cars, you can still look at that and go, well, that's cool and different. Or even if maybe you'll hate it, but like at least it's like you don't need to know anything about cars. You can just go, well, that's a pretty color or whatever. If you're interested in materials, if you're interested in this and that, like it's an interesting piece. And if you are interested in cars, then there's a cool tie-in that's not shoved down your throat. But the subtlety of the car watch collab leads me to this
watch on your wrist,
which is the Nodus Canyon, which I collabed with Nodus and co-designed this watch. And I benchmarked what I thought was a very versatile watch, the Rolex Oyster Perpetual 41. And I said, well, how, specifically the Stella dials, I have a yellow one that I just love. And I said, how close can we get to that for a price that a lot of people can afford? So it's the Lejeune Perret movement.
68 hours of power reserve, fantastic movements.
Yeah, we didn't go with the decorated movement. We went with the solid case back, not because we didn't want to spend the money, but because I wanted a thinner case. On the case back, it has.
What's that? What is that?
That's a topographical map of the Angeles Forest where I film our car reviews.
Nice.
So they're individually numbered, and on your channel today, this is the exclusive. You get an exclusive. This is the new color. No one's seen it anywhere yet. It goes on sale in April, 100 units. This is the forest green with gilt indices and gilt hands. It comes with a 5-link Jubilee bracelet, a quick adjust Nodex clasp.
Signed Smoking Tire.
Smoking Tire on it. Yeah. And
That's
it's quick. You can take the strap off and put on the
Quick
leather
release.
strap with no tools.
Yeah, no, this is really nice.
So,
and you said it was just over like $1,000 you're doing this.
yeah, it's $11.99.
That's pretty.
200 meters
price.
water resist. And so we're very proud of this watch. And so this watch is the sort of accumulation of all of this, but offered out to others. And I really thought if your daily driver is a Seiko, this would feel like a step up commensurate with the price. And if your daily driver is a Rolex, you won't feel like you're slumming. That's where I wanted to be.
And these guys are based locally now,
They're
right,
here.
too.
Yeah,
which is
they're
also
here.
nice.
So designed and assembled in LA. And some of the parts are made in LA, some of the parts are made in Asia. The movement is Swiss. But yeah, designed and assembled here in LA.
They're doing phenomenal work. I've exchanged some emails with Wes in the past, and seen some of their watches in person many times.
Great.
I mean,
They're great.
fit and finish is fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, we're very proud of it, and it's going to come. This one's going to come with a leather option also. We've done some under the cuff NATOs in the past, but this one will come with leather. So very proud of that one.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Nice work.
Yeah.
Nice
Thank
work.
you. Thank you. I'll make sure that you get one for review.
Love to. Love to.
Yeah. And final.
Now this is a special watch. There's a variety of things that you probably could talk about here, but tell us more about this Explorer 2.
I actually fell so in love with the Explorer 2 from my friend Carl. My friend Carl We did an episode of that Watch and Listen podcast with Cameron called Carl Ruins Everything. It's still on YouTube. And if you want to talk about 90 minutes of incredible watch radio that will reorganize your brain, go watch that. But he made me really start to focus on the length and size of hands, and I can't unsee. I had to sell a couple watches because it turns out the hands were too small.
Okay, he doesn't like the stubby hands.
He doesn't like the stubby hands.
It needs to go all the way to the markers.
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Correct.
I tend to agree with that.
So I traded that GMT, believe this, straight up, for 2 Explorer 2s. This was the market
black
at that
dial,
time.
and then
a black and a white.
You had the Polar too.
And I said, for a year, let's see which one I wear more, and I'll dump the other one. I wore the black more. So I kept it.
I'm a Polar guy. I have a 16570 Explorer 2.
I get it.
They're both fantastic.
I get it.
Maybe my favorite line from Rolex. That and the GMT Master 2. I think you've identified 2 of my favorites.
This Explorer 2, for me, because I got a big wrist, 7 3/4. For me, it's the same thickness as the GMT, but a little extra this way. Fits the wrist just perfect. If I had to, go one watch for the rest of my life, even non-customized, it would be this. So then the customization. I took this watch to Tahiti, the trip where I learned about all the black pearl. My brother-in-law came with us among everybody. He passed away from cancer last year. Yeah, very sad, very terrible. And in fact, we did a giveaway with one of these watches, the Noduses, and we got a lot of people to donate blood. That's how you entered or sign up to be a bone marrow donor. So we did a lot of things, but we went to Tahiti. It was the last time he went anywhere before he got sick, and I had been thinking about that, and I'd been thinking about Tahiti as like a state of mind, and I saw this guy, the Dial Artist, in the UK. Have you ever seen him?
I'm familiar, yeah.
And he does abstract stuff, but also sort of photorealistic stuff. So I hit him up and I said, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to make it so that the world inside the glass of this watch is Bora Bora satellite view. And I said, can you do a miniature overhead landscape? And he goes, yeah, I can do that. And when he sent me, I was like, oh my God. And so it looks beautiful. If you pull up a map of Bora Bora satellite, this is exactly what it looks like. It's the original dial. It's not a backup dial. We left the crown, but got rid of all the other lettering. And every time I look at it, I just, for like 2 seconds, go on vacation. And I just love it. And a lot of people get it, certainly after I tell the story. Some people don't get it because for some reason, Explorer 2 that I bought used is somehow precious on its own and perfect. But it's very special to me. I'll never sell it. And so at the end of the journey, what this watch represents is the total disregard for a watch as an investment property.
I love it.
And something as, even if it's not custom, you can look at it and sort of go on vacation for like 2 seconds. And that happens at $500, $5,000, $50,000, $500,000, or $5, or free. It happens across the spectrum. And so that's sort of where we end up there.
I mean, these are merely objects until you can actually experience them yourselves and they can become yours. Like,
yeah.
Through human experience, these become something more than just an object.
Yeah.
But if they just sit in a safe, they become an investment vehicle, what is that?
Yeah.
That's just hoarding.
Yeah,
That's
if I
not
don't wear a
experience.
watch, even with 45 watches, if I don't wear one for 5 or 6 months, it's got to go. It's because there's so many spaces and there's better ones out there. So, yeah. So that's
Thank
the
you,
story.
man. This is a great little collection, or this assortment of your collection of
Yeah.
45. So we are in your garage facility here in Los Angeles. So we looked at some watches. You're
You wanna
also
go
a
look at
car guy.
cars?
Let's go look at some cars.
All right, let's go look at some cars.
Let's do it.
This is
You promised some cars. You're not
this
kidding.
is what work. This is the work part.
This is work?
This is the work part.
So tell us a little bit more about what this is. I mean, this is an incredible facility you got here. Where did this
good,
all
isn't
come
it?
from?
It came from my ridiculous need to collect cars in a city that makes that very expensive and difficult. Real estate's expensive here. Even a very small commercial building is very expensive here. And there is a huge delta between I can afford a nice car or a couple of nice cars and I can afford my own building. Because here on the west side of Los Angeles, we're a couple of miles from the beach. Here in this Playa Vista development across the street, there's a bunch of luxury housing, but not a bunch of space. There are these nice tight townhomes, 2-car garage, but your third, your extra car, where does that go? And I thought there were more people like me that had that problem, that lived in a townhouse or a condo, but also wanted to participate in cars and didn't want to have to run out to the middle of nowhere to build a big house.
Yeah.
And so not only is it just fancy parking, but I wanted to make it the kind of place where you're saving the customer time, which, you're saving them time. But it's the kind of thing they can't get back, right? Like at a certain net worth, and that net worth is maybe a little lower than you might think, your time is worth more than your money.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Unless you're just some ridiculous spender, which in the watch world is possible. But
it's possible.
But at a certain point, and that point creeps up fast, your time is just worth more. So we can provide the space where you can live in a walkable community and still keep your car nearby. We can keep your car in LA if you live somewhere else and come here for work. And now you're driving your own car in LA rather than renting a Dodge Charger.
Because you're like 10, 15 minutes from LAX from here?
3 miles from LAX.
Yep.
We keep the cars on battery tenders. We start them and warm them up once a month to temperature if they haven't been driven. We keep vehicle history reports on the cars, so if there's a light or the tires are low, we can fix that kind of stuff.
You do detailing over
there?
there?
We do detailing. We have a permitted indoor wash and detail bay, which in California is very difficult. But also, you're not here because we park cars. You're here because we park cars in a way that looks pretty.
It does.
It's important, but it's engineering. We're rated to a 12.0 earthquake. I built this building for this. You can't have these quads and just put them anywhere. You have to build around them. So we're the first people to ever do indoor quads. Other people have done it since, we did it first. First people to ever do quads over a basement, because we have a 40-car underground level here. And the first people to ever do quads in a seismic zone, all three of those. So that made the construction of this facility very hard. So
what was the construction process like? How long was that taking?
4 years.
4 years.
So you're standing on 3 feet of concrete with a double rebar grid. The lifts, if you want to get nerdy, come on down.
Let's do it.
Let's get nerdy, people.
We're watch collectors, of course. We're like to get nerdy.
So the lifts, the columns, right? This has to be American steel, not Chinese. That's for the LA certification process. LA certified welders, and then special inspectors to watch the whole thing. These bolts, let's get down, boys. These bolts here.
Get in the squat.
Right? You have 6 of them per lift, right? Each has 2 nuts, so 12 nuts per lift. This rod is 18 inches long and goes down into the concrete. So this is sitting on a steel plate. There's a mirroring steel plate 18 inches down. So they got straight rods to line up through 2 rebar grids to hold that plate to this, anchoring it for earthquakes. And then we have 2, right, times 6, so 12, times 4 lifts, times 18 lifts. I'm gonna brag about this.
Please do.
We have $75,000 in nuts.
And this is not even your only location, right?
We have 2.
You have 2 locations.
The other location does not have quads, it has doubles.
Got it.
So you don't want to have to do these twice.
Yeah.
So we have battery tender systems here that bring power to the upper trays, so all the cars are kept on battery tenders. And then when people call and they say, hey, I'm going to come in and take the car out, we take it down, we have it washed, and we put it in what's called our staging areas 1 and 2. They come in, the car's ready, they go have fun, they bring it back dirty.
So I'm a car curious guy. I don't know as much as you. I'm nowhere near as much as you when it comes to knowledge, but what do you want to show? Like, what can we look at?
Well, look, there's what I really like about the array of cars in here is it pretty accurately reflects the variety that you get in Los Angeles, to this part of Los Angeles anyway, because there's no lowriders. We should have a lowrider. Our other location has a lowrider. Okay, we don't have one here, but our other store does. And then, the Gunther Works Turbo, this is incredible. This is the first one of these. This car this is where my 2 jobs meet. Or 3 jobs. Editor of TheSmokingTire and podcast and Road and Track. So I'm testing this car. So I fortunately have this facility where they can bring in and it can be safe when we're not driving it. This is 1.2 million. This is the first one. They're going to do 25. It has 800 horsepower. It weighs 2,400 pounds, which, if you don't know, is just slightly more than a Miata.
Yeah, it's light.
It's a Miata with a suitcase. And this has 4 times the horsepower of the Miata. It's just insane. This is your final boss car.
And you just get this sent in, and that's part of the job for you.
They drop it off, I drive it, I review it, I make a video, I do a podcast, I write an article, and they take it back. You should see, where does watchmaking and cars meet?
Yep.
At the engine in this car. Because the engine of this car, well, you could say
it's in the back, it's in the rear.
Yeah, Porsche, they're in the back.
Yeah.
This is extraordinary. I don't know if you know what you're looking at.
I have no idea what I'm looking at.
This engine by itself is about $300,000. Okay, so it has a horizontal fan. Most air-cooled cars have a vertical fan. This is like the Porsche race cars from the 70s and 80s had this. It has twin turbos. It has these special intercoolers, which are water-cooled, which go to the radiator that's up front. And this is the nastiest thing around. This is it. It's game over. Absolute game over. I would sell probably my entire car collection if I could get this, but I can't get it.
How many cars do you have in your personal collection?
Between my wife and I, we have 7.
7?
Yeah.
And you have some of them here, I'm assuming?
Yeah. This one. We can go straight to it.
Yes, look at it.
We have 3 of mine here. This is my Porsche 718 Spider.
Beautiful. What's this color? It's like a plummy purple lilac.
It is frozen berry metallic.
Okay.
And it is a very special color. It looks different in all these different lights. We then have the two-tone red and black interior.
Cuts hair fast.
Yeah, remember the old ad? Kills bugs fast.
Yeah.
That's factory. They did that for me at the factory.
It's amazing.
But this car is very special because I changed the engine. So this has a 4.5 liter engine that makes 50% more power than the car left the factory with. So it's just insanely fast. And that's a real keeper, that car.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, thanks. And then this one.
Love this NSX.
This is the 2005 Acura NSX. Final year car. They made the NSX from 91. Sorry, in America, it was 90 in Japan. 90 to 05.
And there's been like 2 generations, right?
So there's 2 generations of early car. You have the pop-up headlights and then the fixed headlights. So they're NA1 and NA2. So this is NA2, the second gen. 05 was the last year. So
and there was like a decade between, like it was dormant for like a decade or so?
12, 13 years.
12, 13 years,
until the hybrid one came out later, which is a cool car in its own right, but it's not this. I actually bought this off one of our storage clients. It lived here for a couple years.
It's beautiful.
He asked me about selling it, and I said, I am not letting that go. And so now we have it, and it's just the best. And then this is my Bentley Turbo R that I've been daily driving for a year. My neighbor passed away. He was the first owner. He died at 93, bought it for himself for his 60th birthday. Drove it on Sundays, and when he died, I bought it off his kids. Has 20,000, and now it has 24,000 miles. And we've been daily driving it for a year. We obviously don't have to go very far, but it's just incredible. It's been really fun, and we're putting it for sale on Cars and Bids very soon.
That Doug DeMuro?
That's Doug's site.
Okay.
So right now we have our man Derek, detailer extraordinaire, is working his magic. We got the photo shoot for it tomorrow, and then it's going down to Doug, and then it's going on Cars and Bids.
It's amazing.
So yeah, fun car, but I heard that you wanted to go for a ride in the NSX.
You offered me some cars to drive, or at least ride in. I'll let you drive it, but as a kid that liked Japanese tuners, I've never driven in an NSX.
Okay.
This would be a really awesome experience.
Yeah, that's the car for you. All right, let's go.
Let's do it.
When you're small sports cars, it's not the best.
What's the lowest riding car that you have? Is this
Yeah,
this is pretty low.
This is low, yeah.
I was doing a deep squat when I was getting out of this bad boy.
You know, a lot of people lament about cars today that you can't feel the speed. You're going so fast, but you can't really feel it, right? So you get tickets, and you can genuinely be like, "Officer, I have no idea how fast I was going." This car, it's the other way. you can actually.
I'm just already noticing like how close I am to the pavement right now.
You are
like,
super close.
I am not used to this. Like, this might be the lowest riding car I've ever been in.
It's really low, and consequently, it goes the other way. 70 in this car feels like 100, which is something I really like. I drive fast cars for a living, but I like it this way.
I heard somebody, maybe it was you that said it. It's not how fast it actually is; it's how fast it feels, right?
Sure. I mean, a lot of people have said versions of that, and they're all right. The fact is, there's only so many places to go really, really fast, even kind of responsibly. And so, a car that feels exciting and engaging most of the time is better than a car, to me, that you can go really, really fast in occasionally.
When you're behind the wheel, like what are the aspects as a driver that makes you, like when you're reviewing something, say like, wow, that was phenomenal. Like what are the, because on a watch, it's, you have the checklist of things that an enthusiast is looking for. When you're getting behind a vehicle, what are those things that you're going through in your mind?
Well, so I am looking for an engaging drive. I'm looking for the things that I touch, my hands, my feet, the things I feel, the things the car tells me, the things that I could tell the car and will it listen. We're turning right here, Habibi. Good move. I like a really engaging drive. I like manual transmissions for my sports cars. I don't mind an automatic for my daily drivers, but for the sports cars, you got to have a stick. I like mid-engine cars. But like as a journalist, right? Like my job is to help you find the car you want, not to tell you about my priorities so much. So
I always have to find that balance too, because like I always see it as like my obligation is to provide value. Like the viewer, it's an equal exchange. The only reason why I have an opinion to give is because people were able to extract any level of value from me. So you have to know what your role is and what your relationship is. Right. There's times where you can, of course, express like, this is what I think is cool, but you always have to find that balance.
It's funny. So as a influencer journalist, right, we kind of do the same thing, different worlds. Do you find that people ask you, or let me rephrase, do you find that people care more about what watches you personally buy and own than what you have to say when helping them find the watch that you think they might want to buy and own?
It's weird because the first video I posted was like of my watch collection. So the foundation of the channel originally was partly me expressing what I had. And I think there's always been this interest. I've delayed showing off what I own. And part of it is almost a philosophy. I want the things that I own to be for myself. I don't want them to be for anybody else. And in watches, we talked about it earlier, there's this concept of hype. And the fact that I can keep this a personal journey to me is exciting, but...
Wait.
Sounds amazing.
Isn't that nice?
Sounds amazing.
That's nice, isn't it?
Good old Japanese engineering. We love it in this car.
VTEC kicked in, yo.
That downshift.
So nice.
It's amazing. You are that felt like we were going as fast as we were going.
Yeah. So you don't really talk about the watches that you...
If I do it, it's on an independent level here and there, but I think it's healthy for me because we were talking about it, watches can become this hoarding activity if you're not careful, because there's no limit to the amount of space. There's not space.
Yeah.
Like you have a garage, there's a limit to what you can acquire.
Yeah.
Watches, there is no that set limit, so I think you have to try to create the guardrails around, especially what I do, making sure it's my own journey is separated from what I do, because I love what I do, but I collect. I'm a collector, but I'm also a business owner in watches. So I try to create two different paths for both of those ideas as much as I can.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the same with cars. Like what you enjoy is different, and how you collect. I'm sure you share it more because you can't really hide it.
My job gives me the privilege of not having to have a regular car. I mean, I literally every week I drive a brand new car that is my job to test and film or write about or whatever. So I don't need an everyday car. So I get to buy weird stuff knowing that if it breaks, I don't need it. You know, I don't need to count on it, that kind of thing. And that's a luxury and a privilege, and as are several other aspects of this job. But you know, when people ask me advice, so often it's, well, what would you do? And I know what they mean, but I really want them to help. I want to help them figure out what will actually work best in their life, because the reason I buy something, a car, a watch, or whatever, it might have some like minute connection to my childhood. It's not good consumer advice. You know, it could be potentially very bad consumer advice to tell them. You know, so what I do for funsies in my hobby and what I do with my job as giving consumer advice are just like not the same thing. You know, so.
And there's also this like confusion that there's the right decision for you is the right decision for somebody else, but it's an independent journey that somebody has to make, and you're just there to provide the information. I
mean, especially with a watch, which is you know, 95% a frivolous purchase.
Sure.
You know, and so, you know, what I like, what looks good on my hairy Syrian, you know, monkey wrist versus what looks good on your wrist or a smaller person's wrist or a woman's wrist. So it's such a different thing. And you know, as I said in upstairs, you know, all my watches need to be worn in a sort of semi-abusive automotive environment. It's not true for everybody, so.
I've been debating with my friends, because there's a lot of equivalence with cars and watches, like even the organizational structure of them. Like there's conglomerates that own majority of the brands. Have you ever gone through the exercise of what is the watch equivalent to the car brand?
On every podcast you can think of.
Okay, well, would you mind doing it again?
Sure.
Okay.
The Porsche 911 is the Submariner.
You don't think it's a Daytona?
Oh, I mean, that's fair.
I think like a GT3 is like a Le Mans Daytona.
Sure, okay, that's fair.
But we agree that Porsche is the Rolex of cars.
Yeah, it is. Because there is hype and there is sort of silliness. They evolve the product incredibly slowly, but ultimately the reason that a lot of consumers do like it is because the products are well designed, very durable, very usable, and very versatile. And that is you've just described a steel Rolex, and you've just described the 911. So, or any Porsche sports car for that matter.
Who's Patek Philippe?
You know, that's probably.
I have an opinion, but I want to hear what you think.
I think it's probably Ferrari.
I agree.
Yeah. And then you have, you know, Lamborghini is real obvious with the Roger Dubuis, right?
I was going to go like AP maybe.
AP is a little bit more like Rolls Royce than it is.
Rolls Royce. Okay.
Yeah.
I could go two ways for Patek. I could go even Rolls Royce for Patek.
You could do that
just because of just more of the classic element. But I guess Ferrari in its own way is like, it is still classic. It's just performance driven.
Correct. And it's the way that, you know, there's a very known, you know, process by which you have to go through steps to buy various watches. And AP's like that too. AP and Patek could easily both be Ferrari. You know, Lamborghini, if I wanted to be mean, I'd say like Hublot or something like that.
What about this car? What if this car was a watch?
The Acura NSX is probably like, man, it punches above its weight class. They didn't really change the product for a very long time. It's got to be like... It's hard because when you start thinking it's got to be Japanese, right?
Ran over a cone.
Like, does it have to be Japanese? If it has to be Japanese, you're really stuck with like mainly Seiko, which is fine. Could be a good Seiko. You could Willard, like a Willard or a
do that. You could
Turtle SKX.
Citizen does some cool things too.
Yeah, it's weird. We're so like automated in our putting it with the country that it's, you know, from, which we didn't do with Patek or AP.
No, it's like a style, an approach.
Yeah. Well, this car is simple, but very high performing. Maybe this is the Speedmaster. This is a real, if you know, you know kind of car. It looks good, so you look at it and you go, that's a good one, and it's very durable, you know, and the design hasn't really changed at all for a very long time.
I think a Willard is a Supra.
Yeah.
Right? Come on.
Yeah.
Gotta be something like
Well,
that.
the modded Seikos, that's your Mustang, right? Because the aftermarket is so big, you know, and it's really, there's a whole culture just around it.
What's the best piece of driving advice you've ever received?
Eyes up.
Eyes up.
Eyes up. Always eyes up. The car will always follow your eyes, and so you got to be looking where you want the car to go. That's extremely important.
Do you remember when you were told that?
Everywhere.
Everywhere?
Every driving school I've ever been to, which is a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, my first driving school probably would have been, 2001 maybe. But
What was your biggest mistake behind the wheel?
other than the crashes I've had,
How many crashes have you had?
a couple, but they've all been on racetracks.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had a crash on the street. I would say the lesson of the worst crash I had on the racetrack was that I should have just said no to driving the car at that moment. It was hold on, big bump.
Here we go.
It was a very hardcore race prepped car, and it was raining really hard, and there was standing water on the track, and there was no way to win that day.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of ways to lose that day.
How often are you driving like your cars versus what's the ratio of your cars versus cars you're reviewing?
I drive a car that I'm reviewing 85% of the time.
How long do you think it takes to understand like what a car is capable of to do a proper review? Like for a watch, I would say that there's the long-term view, but to actually crank out content, I'd say you got to give it at least a week.
Right.
Like a week, 2 weeks is ideal. What's that sweet spot for a car?
So I can do it pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
I would say a couple of hours. I can write a review that is a dynamic review. Here's how it drives. Now I like to keep the car for a few days and go, now here's what it's like to live with.
Yeah.
And these are not exactly the same thing, right? But here's how it drives. If I'm in the right location, a couple hours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not that long. I will say that given the chance, and even though we both are video-based creators, I would prefer to write a review to do a film where I'm driving and talking, because to have the experience of driving fully and to download it and process it for a day or two and craft thoughts versus you're at this track, you're in this country, you better get it now. I appreciate that making videos got me where I am, but like if I had to choose, I'd rather do the writing.
It is more manageable to collect your thoughts that way. And it also puts less pressure on, I would imagine with this, because this is already mental of having to drive a vehicle and you want to be there in the moment.
Yeah.
To be able to collect your thoughts beforehand, I'm sure helps too.
It absolutely does. And it takes a lot of brain power to think about the shot. That's why we have a job called director of photography that exists. And so if you're trying to think about the shot and drive and think about what you're saying and remember the facts and figures of the engine and all that stuff, it's very, very challenging. Okay, where were we?
So what do you think is too much? When people asking watches, like, what's too many watches to collect? I'm sure you've given some thought to it on the car side as well. Like, what do you usually say, or what do you think? What's your process around that?
It just depends on what your appetite is for using them. Cars are really annoying if you're not using them. And if you're not going to use them, if you can't pay for someone else to take care of them or use them. So to me, it's the number that is good is like the number that I can use, which I think my wife and I have settled around 7, and even that is some amount of work. And each of those cars, there's not a lot of overlap. This and my Porsche are the two most overlappy. of those cars. The rest of the cars are all very different. And so the watches too, you know, I'm not going to buy 6 steel Rolexes or whatever, because I already have the thing to scratch that itch, and so I try to find little niches, you know. So I imagine you do as well.
Oh,
right?
definitely. What do you think about how I come to appreciate things that I own, whether it's a car, whether it's a watch, whether it's an article of clothing? Like, you've heard the expression, like, quality wears in, where, like, lacking quality wears down.
Yeah.
But then there's this aspect of cars where when you're looking at a car, what's one of the first things you look at? It's the miles. How many miles are on the... So the act of use is something that people judge it on. Like, how do you find that balance as a car owner where you want to enjoy your cars, but you're also you're depreciating the very thing that you enjoy?
It's very hard. If you so the key is I try not to think of cars in terms of appreciation. Same as watches.
Yeah,
you don't want to buy something like that hoping to make money, because you probably won't get the kind of use out of it that you really should want. The reason you bought it in the first place, to use it, right? You probably won't get that in the way you want. So when I value buying a fun car, I don't think about it in terms of, can I make money? I think about it in terms of, can I own this for a dollar figure per mile or a dollar figure per year that I can live with? So for instance, I recently sold my 1986 Ferrari 328. Great little car. I put 6,000 miles on it in 3.5 years. Road trips with the wife, Pebble Beach concours, good stuff, right? And I paid for the privilege of driving a vintage Ferrari for 3 years, 65 cents a mile. Did I make money? No. But like, I spent a number to own a Ferrari that I can absolutely live with. Okay.
So you always think about it when you acquire something. You understand what maybe your life cycle might be with that vehicle.
Sure, I mean maybe, but like I drive it until I get bored of it, and then I move on. But like nothing is necessarily has to be forever. I don't want that kind of pressure. But like,
which is weird because there are watches that we looked at today where like those are forever. Yeah. Right. But cars is a little bit different at times.
Well, listen, there's a car that will come down from my dad. That may be a forever car. You know, my pink Porsche could be a forever car, but I don't like to go on the internet on big shows and make big proclamations like this car is forever, because some guy is going to hold me to that.
You're going to make a video like why I'm selling my X car, and then it's going to be the top comment, right?
100%. Exactly. Yeah.
Well, dude, this was amazing. Thank you for this.
Thanks for having me. This was great.
My pleasure. And this is a dream, actually, for the NSX.
NSX. We had to follow the camera car on the way here. We can go faster on the way back.
All right, sorry. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.